Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and what do you get when you cross a fire pumpkin, a female Frakenstein, and a generic hero? Well, in video game form, you get Hero Defense Haunted Island, a $14.99 roaming tower defense game that came out to early access on Tuesday. Now this is my dev letter series. Because I don't do formal first impressions or reviews on an early access game, these are my first thoughts on the game and a little bit of feedback for the developer in what they can do in the future of the game. But before I begin, I want to make sure you guys know that this key was obtained from keymailer for the purposes of looking at the game critically. That won't change my opinion in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Let's start with the basics of the game. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, this is a roaming tower defense game, and the towers in this case are your heroes at the bottom of the screen. Now, in order for you to put down a hero, you need to spend orbs in the bottom left at this point. You get orbs by killing enemies, and you're given a little bit of orbs to start off with in order to place 1 or 2 heroes down. Now the roaming part of it is the fact that your towers, aka your heroes, can move. You can move them with the right mouse click, and you can change between heroes with the number keys rather easily, or click on their character portraits. Each hero has his own strength. For example, Burrows here is very good at slowing down the enemy and buffing the heroes around him. On the flip side, however, Jack Sanders, this archer that I just put down, is very good at dealing single target damage, but doesn't do well in groups. In addition, each hero has a particular enemy type they're good against. For example, the archer is very good at dealing with vampires that are coming down the screen right now. Now, I do like the fact that they made color coordination an important part of this. You'll see at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, the archer has a red background and Burrows has a blue background. Notice at the top of the screen, the enemies are being represented by that little bar in the top left. The vampires are red. Yes, the archer is good against vampires, so it's easy to see which hero is important with the wave that's coming up. The ability to move heroes is complemented by one key feature that is missing from this implementation of the game, and that is a pause button. In games like Defense Grid 2, you can sort of stop and actually take a look at your surroundings and be able to place your towers down. But there's a more real-time aspect to this game because you can move your heroes around in real time. The big question to answer here is, how does it change the base tower defense gameplay? Well, it changes it in some ways, but the basis of the genre is still here. You still have resource management. At the bottom of the screen there, you'll notice that I'm able to upgrade my hero here to give her ruins. These ruins are able to fire more projectiles at once, are able to do a little bit more damage, so on and so forth. But I only have a certain amount of resources that I gain from the enemies that I'm killing. The amount to upgrade is based off of how many upgrades that hero has at this point. The first level, rather easy, it's 100, but it goes up in value depending on what ruins you have, because there are ruins that make it a little bit cheaper to buy the next upgrade. However, the major factor here still is the movement element. Now, as a monster gets by you, you have the choice of moving your hero to deal with him at that point. The question is, when is it the best time to do that? When a hero is in transit, he can't do any damage, and that's rather important because if a hero is playing catch-up, or in particular the monster is of an equivalent speed of the hero, you're going to have a hard time. Do I send 2 heroes? Do I put the hero a lot further down the line in terms of being able to catch up at that point? Or do I leave that hero still dealing damage to the monsters that are in range and maybe deal with the fact that I can use a consumable like this poison here in order to deal with the zombies in question? Now the game will add complications in terms of difficulty. For example, you'll have multiple paths that you have to deal with certain monsters going one way while other monsters go the other way. Now there are enhancers before a mission to earn more gold, things like not using any consumables or using one specific hero if you want a little bit more of a challenge. And there seems to be 4 difficulty settings for each map in question as well. With that said, up to this point in the game, they haven't really done a lot with the different level designs. Sure, there are twisting and turning levels, there are more straightforward levels, but I wanted to see a little bit more variety in terms of maybe a gate, for example, that a zombie has to break down in order to go forward. Things like that. I feel like there is some improvement in terms of the variety of level design in the long haul here. Now, you do have things like shrines that sort of add elements to the game that make it rather important. So these shrines can, enhance your range or deal double damage, and they're strategically placed around the map. What's strange here is that even though I'm a person who usually goes and advocates for more simple game design, not putting mechanic upon mechanic upon mechanic, and even though this game does have seemingly a couple mechanics to it, the fact it's got consumables, the movement element of the towers in question, along with the upgradable heroes, there still seems to be something missing. Thinking about it, I think it has to do with the fact that I read the store description. Hero Defense Haunted Isle challenges fans from RPGs, tower defense, and MOBAs. And in particular, it's the MOBA category where I'm thinking, maybe a cooldown skill for the heroes could be an additional element to the game that can add some strategy to it and add one more complexity that I think the game needs over the long haul. Now, you probably caught in that last point that I made that this game has RPG elements, and that is the central hub for this game. You can upgrade your weapons, your skills, learn a little bit about the heroes in question, as well as be able to convert some of the gold that you earn into gems. Now, there are two currencies in this game, and at first I'm like, oh god, please don't have free-to-play transactions. It does not. It just has two different currencies, which I don't necessarily find a use for, and I think it just adds a little bit too much complexity that is unneeded at this point, but okay, I can live with it. At least in this case, you have to actually pay for the conversion in question, and upgrading the bank will actually be able to upgrade the convert rate that you can have. Now, the upgrade system for the hero's weapons is rather basic, but it works. Each weapon will have a specific ruin in each of the upgrade slots in question, but as you upgrade your weapon, each slot can have more than one ruin in it, so you can get multiple upgrades at once. You can customize them to make it a powerhouse character or a speedy character, or get more gold, or make things cheaper for you. Now, you can randomly buy ruins. You can also earn specific ruins based off some of the bigger challenges of the game. But as you see here, buying a specific ruin at a specific star level will get you maybe one uncommon or one rare guaranteed. Very similar to other mobile or, free-to-play games. Again, this is not a free-to-play game, though. Now, you can upgrade a hero's skill set at this point as well, although the skill tree is rather small, and some of the upgrades are rather basic, plus attack speed, plus health, but some of them are significant in terms of, being armor piercing. Now, there is one big feature that I haven't told you guys about yet, and that's the online multiplayer aspect of the game. That's mostly because of the fact that it's not in this version of the early access game. And the problem there is that this is a really big selling point. It's a mix of MOBA and tower defense, and I can't think of a lot of games that allow you to have a multiplayer aspect to it. So this is a draw. To not have any version of it really sort of makes me wonder, okay, is it ready for prime time, or is the idea not working at this point, even in a beta format? I do wonder if that's going to hurt the game's sales in the long run in terms of that multiplayer element not being available when it first comes to Steam. The fact of the matter is that when you first get on the Steam store page and maybe hit the popular new releases page, that is the most exposure that you're probably going to get, with the exception of maybe bundles at this point. The fact is that if this big, huge selling point is not there, people may sort of, decide not to go for it, which is sad because the base of this game is rather nice. Now, while the multiplayer isn't there, I still think there should be some improvements in terms of the storytelling element of the game and what complements the storytelling in terms of the aesthetic. Now, the main character's father is a vampire, and he's going to take over the village. Basic, hero, villain kind of setup at this point. But there are some interesting characters, like the Frakenstein Jane Doe, the purple character on the bottom there. I actually was intrigued by that. To satisfy that curiosity, one thing that the developer can do is give the character a little bit of personality in battle. For example, adding specific lines that, give hints to the background of the character in question, or give them an accent, for example. The thing is that they do it in this game, but the lines repeat themselves over and over and over again very quickly, and to the point where I really wanted to turn that specific portion off. And the voice acting isn't bad, but the thing is that with these repetitive lines going into your skull over and over again, it almost complements some of the repetitive gameplay portions, and unfortunately that's not a good combination. Games like Defense Grid 2, while they had some repetitious lines, they had a lot more variety in those games, and thus it helped in terms of being able to tell a story while in those games. So I think that is a focus for the developers going forward, at least in my opinion. One thing I would like to see added to this game is a zoom feature. Now the camera is always this far out at this point, and the thing is that it can get boring because it's really hard to see some of the details of the characters in question. Again, you've got this sort of fog on the battlefield at times, and seeing whether something is a zombie or whether something is a skeleton, for example, you're always looking at the top of the screen, but I want to see what those models are. I want to see the characters in question that I'm fighting with. So being able to zoom in and being able to see a little bit more detail would be nice, and I think that is a improvement that can be done here. One additional feature that I would recommend to the developer adding is adding labels to the hotkeys for like things like the character portraits down there for selecting a character or for the consumables. Now the hotkeys exist, but I would like to be able to see that label on the character in question so I can have an easy reference to it. There's no reason not to have it at this point, and I am seeing a trend in the industry doing this, and I don't understand why. It may be mobile influences because of the fact that, you have touchscreens and things like that, but it's so easy to put that on there. I do like the fact that you guys have bindable keys, so you got that going for you, but that little addition does go a long way. Now, the developer mentions in the early access full version that they want to polish the rune system. I think the rune system is mostly there. I would like to see some off-the-wall runes, some interesting mechanic runes, other than the improvements that we've seen with things like, more projectiles and things like that. But I think the rune system does its job. Alright, this is Dragnix signing out. I hope you have an idea of what Hero Defense Haunted Island has to offer at this point. And if you have any questions for me, whether you be the developer or whether you be somebody interested in the game, leave them in the comments section below. As for a recommendation, the Dev Letter series doesn't do a recommendation at this point, with rare exceptions, because the game is in early access. However, I would keep an eye out for this game, especially for the Tower Defense MOBA multiplayer element of the game. If you liked this video, hit that like button and maybe share it with a friend or two, again trying to grow the channel, and I will see you all later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button in the middle of the screen. The last video I did will be in the top left, and a related video to this will be in the top right. I do have a Twitter handle at the bottom left, and a Facebook page at the bottom right, and of course you can always subscribe to the Google Plus portion. Anyway, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.